Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Friday Ramblings. We are here. We're going to ramble because it's Friday, so let's get right down to it. We're going to do something a little bit different than usual today. We are going to discuss not a specific TV show, but a programming block of TV shows. Why? Well, because I do want to talk about some of the shows that are part of this programming block. I've actually kind of jump-started that with our previous Tailspin video. So I thought, well, let's break down the significance of the Disney Afternoon programming block. Yay! And then from there, future videos will discuss the individual shows because that's where the real fun begins. Disney Afternoon was, of course, a major part of my childhood because I'm old. Oldie moldy. So the Disney Afternoon was a created for syndication 2-hour animated television block produced by Walt Disney Television Animation, distributed through its syndication affiliate, Buena Vista Television. Now, each show from the block has aired reruns on the Disney Channel, Toon Disney, and is available on their current streaming service, as well as a few other networks, for instance, ABC. But most people think of these shows, they think of them as being part of that afternoon block. So what you did is you had 4 half-hour shows, and as a given show would end its run on the Disney Afternoon, they would shift the lineup where the remaining 3 would move higher up in the time slots, and the new show would always be at the end of it. They also featured unique animated segments consisting of the opening and wraparounds of the cartoon show to reinforce the thematic feel of the whole thing. And of course, as I just implied from that earlier mention of the structuring, they tried to make it so that only one show would be rotated out of the programming block at a time, so you didn't have too massive of an identity change at the start of a given season. This is an important thing when you're doing thematic programming like this, is not to do too much show shuffling all at once, because then you risk alienating your embedded audience, because too much change too quickly makes them feel like, oh, you're just doing something brand new and trying to sell it to me under an old label. Various other networks would have problems with this over the years, because, of course, programming blocks were something that were done by networks for many, many years. You really don't see it too much anymore. Of course, nowadays, most cable channels pretty much just, like, massively marathon shows. Like, oh, it's South Park Wednesday on Comedy Central. It's Titans Go Tuesday, or whatever day they currently air it on Cartoon Network. That's a different reign for a different time. But the Disney Afternoon is, along with TGIF, perhaps one of the most well-known programming blocks of the 90s. Which is all good things. So the Disney Afternoon originally ran from September 10th, 1990 to August 29th, 1997. Now, technically, the programming block was used in the 97 and 98 television seasons. However, they quit using the specific Disney Afternoon branding, and it was shortened to 90 minutes. So it was kind of like the last lingering death rattle era of the Disney Afternoon, which sounds horrible, but let's be honest, if you don't have the wraparounds, you've lost 25% of your programming block. That's not a good sign. Still, 7 good years is something to say. The Disney Afternoon creation idea goes back to Michael Eisner, who became Disney's CEO in 1984, and his push into steady animated television production based on his idea of using new characters to bring in new young fans, launching a new TV animation department. Now, some of the men behind the scenes that would be involved in this would be Tad Stones and Jim McGaughan, as well as Gary Kressel, who turned down a variety of pitches wanting to create the new shows, some of which were used, some of which were not. But they did settle on the big four by the time of the Disney afternoon. As we said, remember this, Eisner stepped in as CEO in '84, and this was one of his first big ideas. The Disney afternoon did not start till 1990. This is going to be important in just a moment. Remember these dates. He spent basically 6 years building up to the idea of the Disney afternoon. Now, in the initial block of time, 3 of the first 4 shows had actually pre-existed the Disney afternoon. As such, there was only one brand new show to the concept, which is well and good. As I said, this was something Eisner had been building up for 6 years. He introduced the shows as individual concepts. When he had fan interest in them, he bandied them together, giving the 4th slot to a brand new show as a way of, hey, we're already watching, might as well hang out for another half hour. This is classic networking concept. You'll still hear today people talk about lead-in shows. The idea is you get the audience hooked on a show that they really, really like. You put a new show on right after it, and they'll go, I'm already watching the channel. That show is really good. Let's check this other one out. This is some of Michael Eisner's brilliance, using classic network TV programming techniques to get things going. So, your original programming block consisted of Adventures of the Gummy Bears, DuckTales, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, and Tailspin. Tailspin being the original creation that hung on the end of the Disney afternoon. Now, we have, as I said before, already done a video breaking down the awesomeness of Tailspin. Please feel free to look at my archives and watch that video. As far as the rest, we have, real quick, because again, we are going to do individual breakdowns of the shows, but Adventures of the Gummy Bears, which first aired in 1985, loosely inspired by the Gummy Bear candies, was your opening line-up show. It, along with the Wuzzles, was the first shows that Disney really experimented with in producing their own in-house television to sell to other networks for syndication. However, only 2 years later, DuckTales, one of the great icons of Disney television, showed up as well, and many people consider this the true start of what would become the Disney afternoon, as while Gummy Bears did have a pretty good audience, DuckTales was in many ways the perfect Disney show that summed up Eisner's philosophy, in that the characters in DuckTales, by and large, the core cast of Scrooge McDuck, Huey, Dewey, Louie, and recurring character Donald had previously existed in the comic books that had been around for decades. Taking inspiration from many of the Scrooge McDuck comics to serve as the backbone for DuckTales, they created a few more original characters over the course of the series and to help flesh out the city of Duckburg. And there you go. This in many ways was a theme that we would see a lot from the Eisner era and even shortly after the Eisner era, which was taking old concepts and characters you already had and giving them a fresh coat of paint. Good times, and we will definitely be discussing DuckTales in more detail. This same idea also extended to, in 1988, early 89, there was a preview episode in summer of 88, but in 1989, Chippendale Rescue Rangers. This, of course, took the titular Chip and Dale, who were originally portrayed as simple, mischievous chipmunks, and gave them a massive overhaul, leading a gang of adventurers who were original characters created for the series. So, right now we have two of these concepts that had pre-existed the Disney Afternoon, done well, which helped inspire this programming block, along with Tailspin, which fit into this concept as well, taking the core characters of the previous Disney movie, The Jungle Book, and transplanting them into a new world. And that is your original Disney Afternoon lineup in 1990. After 1 year, Adventures of the Gummy Bears was phased out of the programming block, and we got Darkwing Duck, a spin-off of DuckTales featuring a crime-fighting new character, the aforementioned Darkwing Duck, and DuckTales character Launchpad McQuack in the new city of St. Canard. Later on in the series, Gizmo Duck would be a recurring guest character, Gizmo Duck being one of the characters that had been a regular in the later episodes of DuckTales. These were good times. Then in 1992, DuckTales was phased out to make room for Goof Troop, once again fitting that same formula of reimagining classic characters. Goof Troop took inspiration from a couple of classic Goofy shorts in which he was seen interacting with a son of his, and went full-blown sitcom style, Goofy raising his son, now renamed Max, and doing his best as a single father. Goof Troop in many ways could be argued, along with DuckTales, to be the most successful of the shows, as not only did it, like many of the Disney Afternoon shows, get video game adaptations, but it got 2 theatrical films that took place after the series, in which Max originally was shown finding his place in high school, and later in the second movie going to college. These are both excellent movies, and we will be discussing them in much more detail when we discuss Goof Troop in intense detail. In 1993, Rescue Rangers would be retired, and we would get Bonkers. This was spun off from the Disney's Raw Toonage show, which was basically an anthology-style series in which you would get different shorts every week. Bonkers, however, because Raw Toonage had not existed for very long before Bonkers himself debuted, means this was the first show outside of Darkwing Duck, which was itself a spin-off of DuckTales, which was a classic show reimagined. Bonkers was one of the first things to be completely fleshed out from the early 90s animation department. Raw Toonage having been basically his test audition, and Bonkers being the full-blown show. In 1994, Tailspin, Big Goodbye, and we got 2 choices. Yeah, because you still had Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop. Well, no, 50-50 on this one. Okay. In 1994, we got the Aladdin cartoon series, which was a continuation of the theatrical movie and its direct-to-video follow-up, The Return of Jafar, which set up the basic plot points of the animated series. However, in 1994, we also got the show Gargoyles, which originally started off outside of the Disney Afternoon block on ABC, but would later start airing on the Disney Afternoon block itself. So, technically they both debuted in 94, but Gargoyles did not initially air as part of the Disney Afternoon block. It would migrate there later. Darkwing Duck bid goodbye in 1995, and we got the Snookums and Meat Funny cartoon show, which also had its origins in the Raw Toonage anthology show. This would be more of your classic slapstick animation type cartoon, as opposed to most of the Disney Afternoon block. Your DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, Aladdin, Gargoyles, which had a backbone of adventure and excitement to them. Snookums and Meat was based more like on Goof Troop, as I said, with a sitcom, laid-back, humor-oriented feel to it, which is, all good, well and good. We then later got Timon and Pumbaa, a spin-off of the Lion King movie, which focused on the two sidekicks, Timon and Pumbaa, although Simba did appear in a few episodes as a guest character, along with Rafiki and a few others here and there. Mostly, though, it was Timon and Pumbaa occasionally wandering the world, getting into mischief, as they tend to do. Finally, in the last season, we got Quack Pack, which was kind of a... It was originally intended to be a follow-up to DuckTales, but then veered off in its complete own direction. Again, we'll go into more detail about it at a later time. The basics of Quack Pack that you have to appreciate, though, is that we now have Donald full-time reunited with his nephews and his girlfriend Daisy, and his nephews have now been aged a few years from children into teenagers. The main beauty of Quack Pack is that the first time the three boys were given distinct personalities and full-blown costume designs to help differentiate them, as opposed to simply wearing the same shirt and baseball cap look in different colors. The color theme was still there, but they actually were allowed to have different outfits themselves as well. Along with the Mighty Ducks, which is not a spin-off of the live-action movies about children's hockey team, but was about intergalactic aliens who happen to look like ducks and who also were really good at playing hockey, pretending to be a professional hockey team on Earth while they hunted down the alien invaders that they came to Earth to flee from. Very sci-fi. Interesting show concept, but the fact that it was being released at the time they were still doing the live-action Mighty Duck films, and in real life, Disney still owned the Mighty Ducks hockey team. It was a lot of Mighty Ducks branding that it just kind of got weird for a couple of years there. You had the real Mighty Ducks, which was a professional hockey team of humans. You had the cartoon Mighty Ducks, about a professional hockey team of anthropomorphic ducks, who were technically aliens, and then you had the live-action Mighty Ducks trilogy, which was about humans playing hockey, but not the human NHL team, but children's hockey league. as I said, a lot of weird branding went on there during the period that Disney owned the Mighty Ducks franchise. Still, these are the shows that compose the Disney afternoon. Now, as I said before, most of the original classic shows did get video games spun off from them. DuckTales had 2 games on the NES and has in more recent years, remake done by Way Forward, specifically a remake of the first game. As great as it was, it'd be kind of neat if they did a remake of the second game as well, but I don't know, that's up to them in Disney's licensing department. Rescue Rangers also had 2 games on the NES. Tailspin had 1 game, and Darkwing Duck had 1 game as well. Although there was also a different game, not a straight port, a different game released on the TurboGrafx 16. I think it was the TurboGrafx 16. Let me double check that real quick. Oh, doop 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 doop. Yes, the TurboGrafx 16 was the other Darkwing Duck game. And of course, the characters have appeared in other Disney-related game products. Most recently, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 NES games were packaged together in a collection and released to modern platforms as the Disney Afternoon Collection, which speaks to the legacy of the Disney Afternoon. It's not just that, you know, hey, it was a cute little branding for a few years in the 90s. You really, as I said before, can't even talk about the shows to people from that era without them thinking about the Disney Afternoon. It was the only thing you could call a collection of these games. Hey, let's package together all these NES games that were adaptations of cartoon shows Disney did. Oh, you mean the Disney Afternoon ones? Exactly. Pew. So, good times. As I said, we have already done Tailspin breakdown. However, we will be breaking down at the very least first handful of shows. Definitely want to talk about DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck. Gummy Bears is interesting to talk about. Just because, since the show itself was basically just inspired by how much Michael Eisner's son enjoyed the candy, which itself doesn't have any real backstory to it, the world they created around, hey, let's do a show about gummy bears, got pretty dang creative. We'll talk about Goof Troop as well. I don't know. Depending on how things go, we might talk about Bonkers and Gargoyles. I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge watcher of the Schnookums and Meat funny cartoon show. Aladdin was great, but I mean, if you're going to talk about the Aladdin cartoon show, you really got to talk about the 3 Aladdin movies as well. Just because, as I said, it belongs to a bigger franchise. Same thing with Timon and Pumbaa. Quack Pack and the Mighty Ducks I was aware of, but I really didn't watch that much. As I said, this was the last year of the Disney Afternoon. I myself was kind of getting more into other things besides watching TV all day, so I didn't watch it as much as I did the earlier shows in the earlier years. Still, it's good times, and as I said, for its decade, it, along with the TGIF lineup of primetime sitcoms, is perhaps the most fondly remembered programming block of its era. And that speaks a lot to the marketing of it and the quality of the shows that were put on there. So, there you go. For those of you too young who want to know, hey, what's up with my parents and older cousins and all this? Being so gaga about these shows being on my Disney Plus streaming thing? This is why. These shows were our childhood. Not just our childhood, but we watched them in blocks. You'd watch DuckTales. You'd watch Rescue Rangers. You'd watch Darkwing Duck. You get hype, and then you'd watch Goof Troop to follow it all up. And then, only then, could you actually do things like do your homework. Mostly because by that point your parents were getting annoyed with you. Okay, how many more cartoons are you going to watch? How many shows are in this Disney afternoon thing? You got math homework to do. It's okay, Mom. It's okay. It's over. It's only 2 hours a day. Yep. So join us back in 7. We won't be breaking down all these individual shows in 7, but we will do that in the coming months. I don't want to overflood. Mostly because too many thematic months kind of ruins the fun of doing thematic months. And we like to give everybody a little taste of something every month. You know, you don't want to make somebody wait 2-3 months at a time to hear about their comic book stuff they like. Still, that is the future of the channel because we will be here every Friday, or whenever you choose to watch it if you don't watch it on its live premiere, to ramble about your favorite entertainment. We do it with a sense of love and appreciation for not just the nostalgia, but the hard work that people go in to make this. So, subscribe, get your notification bell, ring-a-ding, drop a like, drop a comment, make suggestions for future topics if you so wish, but no matter what, stay happy, stay healthy, and come back every week. Because we'll be here to give you a little positivity to start your weekend. Because we love you like that. Bye-bye.